Listen. I like to call it fashionably late. We're just fashionably late. Gotta be, you gotta show up to the party, but give it time to start and everything, and whatever other excuse we have for this being late. But we're here. We have some catch up to do. We're here to talk about Last of Us episodes 1 through 3, and we're just gonna kind of quickly go over what we liked about all 3 of those episodes and what we didn't like. Give our quick thoughts on each one so we can catch up and then go through the rest of the season episode by episode and go in depth with each one. Jon and I are big fans of the game. Did you play it when it came out? Because I played it late.
Yeah, no, I mean, I played it when it came out, and then I also replayed it again, around the time you were playing it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I played it in I played it later in high school. It came out when we were in middle school.
It originally came out on the PS3.
Yeah.
But it was around that time when the new consoles were coming out.
That's right.
So it kind of made no sense for it to come on PS3. I mean, it did make sense for all those people who weren't, I guess, upgrading or couldn't get a PS4 then.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it was easier to get a PS4 than it was to get a PS5.
Yeah, because when I first played The Last of Us, it was one of those games I just fell in love with from the start. And I'm a big Naughty Dog fan. I love Naughty Dog in general. They make fantastic games. I love Uncharted, and I love The Last of Us. This is one of those examples where it's if you're going to adapt anything to live action, Uncharted and Last of Us are prime good examples to do. No, yeah, we did get an Uncharted movie.
We did, and...
Well, was it really Uncharted, though? So, naturally, video game adaptations, I was cautiously optimistic. I know even you are more hardcore. I know you're the kind of guy that's dude, don't even touch certain things on that.
Yes, I was very nervous for this. Very nervous. But I am very surprised, too, because they have been nailing it.
Honestly, this has been... We're just going to get right into it. Episode 1, to start off with, is the first prime example where I think this is what I love about a good video game adaptation, where you can have that nice balancing act of taking something that we love from the games, the post-apocalyptic world, the tension, the atmosphere, the feeling of dread. All of that atmosphere is genuinely felt here, and it feels like it's stripped directly from the game. It doesn't feel like just a horror show with the title Last of Us slapped onto it. It feels like you're watching pieces of the video game that we didn't get before, and that starts with the opening of episode 1, where we have this great intro. It's not in the game, but it's... Spoilers, by the way, for each episode. We're going to kind of talk in depth about what we like really quickly, but in this case, spoilers ahead. Episode 1. In this episode, I love that addition of getting to see this interview back in the 60s, where scientists were talking about the potential of an outbreak happening. It's not like a conversation that you could actually hear in real life on the news or something, where you have this guy who's essentially saying, nah, pandemics don't scare me. We'll get through that, but you know what is scary? Fungi. Let me tell you why. The way he breaks it down for anyone, we already know, if you're a fan of the game, you probably know that it's from a cordyceps virus. It's a fungus that grows and then starts spreading throughout humanity. In the game of spores, here it's changed a little bit, but again, it's the same concept. It is about fungus, and the way this show breaks it down, that wasn't in the game. And I thought it was a really clever way of explaining the concept of the cordyceps virus to a viewer that has not played the game. What did you think about that opening in general?
I mean, not only that, with the conversation with the scientist, and I also love when he actually gets more in depth and breaking it down why a fungi is very dangerous. It can be. I love how quiet the room gets, and then they're like, oh, this feels very real, kind of scary. I love how much more we got of Sarah. We just actually got to see more of that life and more of that world building. Things are kind of going on in the background, and you can see Sarah very confused, and you just kind of follow along with her. Ultimately, it does happen with her. I guess you feel a little bit more when that actually happens. Because in the game, the opening kind of happens very quickly. I mean, the game just kind of throws you in there, but for the show, it lets you kind of marinate it a little bit more before everything really starts to pop off. Even with the differences they make, I really like all the small differences. I mean, of course there's going to be small differences, especially when you're converting something that was originally a game into a TV show, because it's dramatically different.
I loved the fact that we got to see Sarah actually go to school. One of my favorite little moments in the first episode, and it's just a great use of tension. And it's not even when anything's going down yet. It's just when you really get the perspective of a child in a scenario like this, where as a kid, sometimes you just get that feeling of anxiety where you're like, is something going to go wrong? They nailed that. And it's this one little moment where she's in the classroom and the teacher's is teaching and she's writing some notes down, and she just kind of stops and looks to her right to the kid, messing with her hand.
Yeah, he's just tapping and there's a reflection
of
their bracelet.
And that whole moment to me just... I've had moments like that where I just get a little anxious, like nothing's going on, but you look around and you feel like something's off. And that just nailed it. And it just kind of, it's a good way at guiding you and massaging you into this, like, slow build of tension before it blows up when nighttime hits.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff I lived for. And that's what really, really stood out to me in episode 1, especially. They nailed this opening so well. That's what a good video game adaptation does. You're able to harken back to the game and be able to really make fans of the video game feel included and feel like we're having a great time seeing one of our favorite games brought to life, but also not distract and alienate someone who may not have played the game. So they could feel also included and really enjoy the show and also feel every beat that Sarah and Joel go through in this moment, in the opening half of this episode. What about you? Did you think it was like smooth in how it like went from moments that were new and that we hadn't seen before, transitioning into moments from the game?
Oh yeah, a perfect example of that is really the beginning with Sarah, going through Sarah with her day, and then having that when Joel walks in. Like, that was very smooth. All the things with, like, Tess, even, I think, are very smooth. And they just work for a TV sense.
And, that's a good point, too, with Tess. Because, like it's funny. It's like my brain is so much on the opening and how they did that. I forget the second half of this episode is, the world set up with the apocalypse. Like, you get that part where you can see Joel dealing the drugs with the soldier, which is a really cool addition, I think, too. And that says a lot about Joel, and like the game does a good job at showing you how Joel is by different means and different interactions, but here in the show I think it's interesting, and it kind of does a good job of blurring the line where he's like selling drugs to a soldier to help him cope with the fact that he's shooting people every day. But also Joel's one of those people that the soldier might have to shoot someday. Which is, I think, I like that bitter irony, and that's so Last of Us to put that in there to me. What do you think of like how they did the world building with the post-apocalyptic world?
Oh yeah, I mean, I love it. I mean, honestly, it's phenomenal. It is spot on. It is perfect. I feel like I am in Last of Us. I feel like if you put that on, I'm going to identify it. So one thing that I hate with either live adaptions or any kind of adaptions where it looks so strange compared to the original, where I can't even tell you what it is.
Yeah, I feel like it would be really fun to take someone, like, it's so hard to do, like, it's damn near impossible, but it'd be really fun to, like, take someone who hasn't seen any of, like, promo or knew the show existed, but knew the game very well and loved the game, and then just sit them down and have them be, hey, watch the show, and then see them start being like, wait a minute, this is Last of Us, like, because it kind of works like that. You just take a look at it, and you just have to look at it for a few seconds before you go, no, I've played this. This is The Last of Us. I've seen this cutscene before, and that's so exciting. I'm beating a dead horse with saying that, but it just makes me happy.
Yeah, it makes me so happy. I just love what they're doing with this. Episode 1 is amazing in my books.
Yeah, same. Episode 1, I think, did a great job at introducing you to Joel, introducing you to Ellie, too. Ellie, again, Bella Ramsey. They're able to fit so much with one episode and really do a good job at making it all feel layered and built up and not rushed. I love our introduction to Tess and Ellie. And the fact that you actually get a clear answer on whether Joel and Tess were a relationship, because that's implied in the game, but you never really see that. And this one, they're actually like literally getting into the bed together and doing stuff like that. I thought that was nice to see. It adds a little more an emotional hit for when we see what happens to Tess in episode 2, and now we know what happens to Tess in the game. Anna Torv does such a good job at portraying Tess. She nails that attitude that Tess has. She talks shit. She doesn't take shit, and you can tell she's running the show, and Joel is the muscle, and it does. You learn that right away, and I think it does such a clever job with that interrogation scene with Tess. Basically, the guys are asking, "Look, I know we beat the shit out of you, but can you not tell Joel, just please, please?" I thought that was great. I do miss the wrench pipe hit from the game, where you go chasing him through that level, but. I'll take this instead because the dude's a dweeb. It made me so happy to see. Pedro Pascal does so much in this episode, and
he does.
One thing that stands out to me, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on it too, is like the moment we see at the end, and it's that first snap moment we see with Joel, which they're planning so we see now Joel has a fuse. It's when the soldier that he was selling the pills to comes back to him, basically saying, no, we're going to do this by the book. And they're doing the scan reading, and it's like the moment from the game, but now in the show, where they're scanning each one, and then Bella scans red, so the soldier's like, all right, I gotta kill y'all. It's really interesting how, instead of just a team kill moment, it's a character moment for Joel. He flashes back to Sarah in the moment where he has the gun pointed at him, and then he just snaps. Not a second hesitation, just tackles the dude and just pummels him and Batmans him to death. And then, without the vengeance, that moment was so interesting because Ellie's watching and is kind of fascinated by that. And this was where I'm starting to see differentiation from the game.
Yeah.
Is little beats with Ellie. I don't know. What were your thoughts on all that? What do you think that meant? It's different. Like, it's just different. I thought it was interesting.
It's very different. They're just trying to play with more of like if a younger person, a teenager, is like witnessing these things, being influenced by their environment, and she is being heavily influenced by Joel. She's witnessing these things, so it's just kind of making her who she kind of will become, I guess.
Yeah, because you play Last of Us Part 2. But really interesting. I think Bella Ramsey's doing a good job at having her moments where you feel like it's video game Ellie, but also differentiating a little bit. There's a little more anger behind this Ellie, which I find really interesting, but I'm excited to see where it goes. There are certain moments where she'll talk back to Joel where I wouldn't expect, and then moments where she doesn't where I would expect. But I shouldn't be surprised because this is a show, so they're going to change a few things, but I think they're cool changes. And I think they're cool little details that add to the character of Ellie rather than detract. So I'm excited to see more with that. And we do see more of that with episode 2 and 3, especially episode 3. But we'll get into that. Episode 1 was great. That was our thoughts on The Last of Us, episode 1. Thank you all so much. Scatterbrain Reviews. And here we go, episode dose.